What is up, guys? It's your boy, Raid Kakis, and today we gotta talk about the all-new Master Difficulty Root of Nightmares raid that just became available today with the weekly reset within Destiny 2, because there are some significant changes between this Master Raid and previous ones. Did Bungie do well by this activity? Because remember, the Master Raid is kind of the absolute pinnacle of endgame content, or at least that's how Bungie and a lot of people view it. This is what the hardcore players, what the grinders are gonna be going for, right? Well, there's definitely some things we gotta talk about. Now, right off the bat, one of the biggest changes between this Master Raid and previous iterations is that this one forces you to be at a level disadvantage. The activity is set to 1840, so your maximum effective power is 1820. If you're above that, it's not going to make a difference. Whereas every other Master Difficulty raid, you could, if you put in the time, level up to actually be at parity or even above the power level of the enemies within that activity. So a lot of people, including myself, are saying, well, since this is the only one where you're forced to be at a level disadvantage, this might actually be one of the harder Master Raids ever introduced. Well, there's some things that actually go against that, and that is the fact that this also has the new modifiers. So we have champions here, we have overcharged weapons being active, which means if you have, for example, barrier-piercing pulse rifles will be overcharged. Like if they're an anti-barrier weapon, they will be overcharged. And there's also two surges active. Solar Surge, so 25% bonus outgoing solar damage, and then Strand Surge, as well as specifically overcharged shotguns. So if you're using a solar shotgun, it's not going to stack, it's just going to do 25% more. But hey, I was actually using the concluded, I think finality is what it's called, the raid shotgun, the exotic one, and that is going to be doing 25% more damage, and it actually hit pretty hard. It definitely something you should consider running in this activity. Now, these overcharged featured weapons and surges may change on a weekly basis, but the fact that there are surges in this activity is definitely a factor in making it easier. I mean, right now, an absolute god tier build I just did a video on is the Starfire Protocol Warlock. Like, this is the meta for PvE, the overall consensus best build in the game, and it's solar. So this week, running through with that doing 25% more damage, yeah, it kind of negates a lot of that level disadvantage. With that being said, another big change that all Master Raids have, and this one is no exception, is the fact that a lot of enemies are now replaced by champions. So in the third encounter, the planet switching encounter right here, normally you're fighting a Colossus, and now you're fighting a barrier champion. So you may need to alter your loadouts in order to deal with the increased number of champions. And they're undoubtedly harder to deal with than the normal non-champion enemies. And so guys, overall, I really didn't find Master Difficulty too bad. It is absolutely harder than the normal version of the raid, but aside from having to change our resistances depending on the encounter, because the adds absolutely do hit harder with that level discrepancy, the only main difference was that bosses would take 2 phases instead of 1, really. And we did have to alter our builds slightly to deal with those extra champion spawns, but again, aside from that, it didn't feel like this was that much harder than other Master Raids I've done in the past. However, for a lot of people out there, this is still going to be a very challenging activity. And again, it's harder and takes longer than the normal raid. So why are you doing this activity? What's the payoff? Well, every single encounter, when you beat it, is going to drop guaranteed armor. Every single time. Now, this armor is actually going to be weighted for a certain stat that's going to rotate weekly. So right now the stat I think is resilience, and here's some of the armor I got from this raid, and you can clearly see, all right, it's got a spike in that particular stat. Like, it is definitely, if I was really farming armor with this stat, potentially a good idea to go and do this. But it's not Artifice. Bungie has said that Artifice armor only comes from the Master difficulty dungeons. And therefore, if you are someone like me, if you're a hardcore player who has already spent a lot of time grinding Artifice armor and already has fantastic rolls of Artifice armor, I really don't see a point in doing Master difficulty raids for armor. Because it is just normal armor. Aside from the fact that you can put on the special raid mods, which you really don't need in my opinion, there's other much easier ways to get good armor rolls. I mean, you can target focus Defiant engrams into high stat armor and just farm it that way. It's way easier than getting a whole group together and doing a Master difficulty raid. So that's been a problem for a while. I think Bungie kind of just made up this arbitrary rule about Artifice only coming from dungeons, and they're acting like this rule is set in stone. I think they need to change it, make Master difficulty raids drop Artifice armor, and then people would be a lot more interested in those armor drops. But also, we have Adept weapons. So, if you do the specific weekly featured challenge, in this case, it was the first encounter challenge, which was simply to just kill the tormentors when you had the light buff, then, as you can see, for that one encounter only, the challenge chest will drop an Adept raid weapon. In this case, it is the sidearm. Now, that right there, this whole process is a huge deal because it's undergone some big changes this season. Previously, there was really no point to farm Adept raid loot because, yes, it can have Adept mods put on it, but the perks are just normal, and if I crafted a raid weapon, I can put on enhanced perks, and double enhanced perks are likely going to be significantly more powerful overall than just the ability to put on an Adept mod. But this time around, Bungie has stated that in a mid-season update, you're actually going to gain the ability to upgrade these weapons. So I can take my Adept sidearm with rewind rounds and hatchling and upgrade it and actually turn those perks into enhanced versions. So I can have enhanced rewind rounds and enhanced hatchling. So if I luck out and get the complete god roll for an Adept raid weapon and then I upgrade it, technically it's going to be better than the crafted version. But guys, there's a huge problem and something I'm really annoyed about, and maybe you've already seen it. There's only one set of perks. Like, what's going on here? Because with Vault of Glass, the Adept raid weapons had double perks to make it easier to actually get the god roll. Okay, but what about the raids that let you craft stuff? Well, with Vow of the Disciple. Oh wait, those Adept weapons had double perks to make it easier to get the god roll. And then, even with King's Fall, those weapons had double perks. So, what is going on here? Bungie has taken away the fact that Adept raid weapons would spawn with double perks as RNG alleviation. It is a harder activity. It's one of the hardest activities in the game. Most people aren't going to be able to do this, and so they're not going to be getting constant Adept raid loot. And so, hey, we have double perks to make it easier to get. The only thing I can think of is Bungie actually sat there and went, well, now that Adept raid weapons are finally going to be relevant so you can upgrade them, let's make it way harder to actually get the god roll and take away the double perks. They slashed your chances of actually getting the god roll in half by taking away the double perk spawns. Now, it should be noted that if you beat the raid, you can actually buy Adept raid weapons with Spoils of Conquest, but you could do the same for the other ones that had double perks. I just don't understand why Bungie suddenly got more stingy for this raid in particular. And so overall, is this the ultimate hardcore activity for the ultimate hardcore gamer? Not really. The difficulty level just feels weird. Yes, it is more difficult in many ways, but also the surges completely negate some of those difficulty increases. I wonder if this would have been a better experience if Bungie just made the level discrepancy like essentially day one contest mode again, and that's it. No other changes. And then on top of that, you have a little bit of a harder time getting the actual god rolls you're looking for, and really we're talking about some extremely minor differences. Like if you get the perfect god roll and upgrade it, yes, it's technically better, but really by one Adept Big One spec. In the grand scheme of things, is that really gonna matter? Probably not. If for a PvP role, getting an Adept range is definitely gonna make a bigger difference, but still, like, it's not that much better. And for a lot of people, because the armor isn't Artifice, they're not gonna care about that either. So Master Raids are just in this weird spot that they've always been in. They're kind of maybe worth it if you can justify it, but for a lot of people, they're simply not. And unfortunately, the changes this season really didn't change much about that fact. Guys, that is it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.